25 minutes past 8 a.m. we get into our Tech Note this morning, where we get to look at the Africa Liberation Day and what it actually means. Now, this is a day that is celebrated every May on the 25th, which is tomorrow. It's celebrated simply because Africa has come a long way in actually attaining its liberation that it has today. In 1963, we had the coming up of the organization of the African Union, and so it was taken on as the African Liberation Day from Africa Day. Today you do have member states celebrating it all over the continent of Africa, and of course Uganda is part of those member states. Here to have this conversation with us, to let us know where it all started from, what has been the journey, and what's the way forward. How do we get to carry Africa as a continent forward, celebrating Africanacity, but more so ensuring that we get to be talked about on the global map, especially politically, economically, and socially. Felix Kulayigye, who is the General and also UPDF spokesperson, gets to join us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. And we're also joined by Dr. Mugabi, Rubahamya. How do you say that name? Those are so many.
It's a statement in the name.
Exactly, a statement in the name.
And it is, by the way.
Anyway, Dr. Mugabi, you're the coordinator national for Uganda as far as Pan-African Federalist movement is concerned. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
So we want to first understand, it was once Africa Day. Today we're knowing it as the Africa Liberation Day. Fande, why do we have it as the Africa Liberation Day today?
Thank you. You see, every time had its agenda. The agenda in the late 50s, 60s was political liberation because of the colonial yoke. And so those who were not colonized like Ethiopia, those who got independent earlier like Egypt and then Ghana, wanted other African countries to be free. In fact, some were saying, look, we can wait, delay our own independence so that others can join us. So those by 1963 that had gotten independence, Guinea Conakry, Ghana, Nigeria, said, okay, let's form an organization to bring us together to champion African freedom. That's how the Organization of African Unity was formed in 1963, and we see it on the 25th. So it was called Africa Day because of the creation of that day. However, others like Mwalimu Nyerere and what have said, no, we cannot keep just celebrating. We need now to champion the freedom of others. And so the day was converted to become Africa Liberation Day. So each 25th of May, they would take stock. How many of us now are free? Those who are left was the problem. And that's how they informed the Liberation Committee, which was headquartered in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. Because mainly the colonial yoke had remained south. Yes, the former Portuguese colonies also were still under colonial yoke until 1975. So it was necessary to be taking stock every year, one, two, to chart out ways of helping those who have remained under the colonial yoke. So not only was it reminding the African that there are those who are yet to be free, but also get ways of doing it, contribute resources and what have you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Afande. You've also explained to us why we get to celebrate this day and what it actually means to Africans. Dr. Mugabi, why does Uganda have to take part in this day?
Uganda has been taking part in this day since I can remember. And when we were still youth, we used to see people celebrating this day to mark the onward journey towards total liberation and freedom for all African countries. And even at the 1963 signing the treaty that put all African countries together, Uganda was represented by its president, Dr. Milton Obote.
Then Prime Minister.
Then he was actually Prime Minister, you're right. So Uganda has been part of these celebrations. It's not just beginning, but you can say for this time, what is compelling at this time? Why should we celebrate it perhaps more different from whatever we've been celebrating before? Because Uganda has been at the forefront of the liberation movement currently on the continent. We've been in Somalia, we've been in Congo, we've been in Rwanda, we've been in many countries. In Burundi, in Central Africa, all these countries. Why? Because we believe that all these people need to be free. All these people need to build structures, political, social, economic, to advance the development and prosperity and well-being of the African people. Now, in this year, we organized with some other partners. One of them, the leading partner, was the UPDF, because we know the ideology is rooted into patriotism, nationalism, and Pan-Africanism. So, and we've been partnering with them for a long time. It's not just for this time alone. And they've been there for us because they lead the Solidarity March to show that we march, we really want to let people out there know that we are still in the struggle. And then people will say, what about liberation? What is now left, in quotes, in liberation? There are many other areas to be liberated. We need economic freedom and prosperity. We need to be in control of our natural resources and our human resources, because now we have challenges where you find young men and women taking perilous journeys across the oceans to try and seek for a better life
greener
out
pastures.
there, which actually is just a mirage.
But are they actually green?
Okay, well, that's what they call it.
Yeah. So now these are the issues. How do we make sure that Africa can protect its own and can look out for its own? So in the Pan-African Federalist Movement, we are a global organization. Our headquarters are in Mali. We have a spread out structure across the world, in Asia, in the Caribbean, in the whole diaspora. And we believe in not having offices we own, because the offices are supposed to be owned by the people. So we are mostly coordinators. Wherever you will find us, we will be a coordination committee. Why? Because there is something we are coordinating. It is the ideal of making sure that we link our struggle, not only amongst African countries on the continent, but also African states that are in the diaspora, where we can synergize and put together our efforts.
Okay.
And
all
exchange.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mugabi. Coming back to you, General Felix, you have talked about this Africa Liberation Day as one of those ways that you get to take stock of those that have been liberated and those that need to be liberated. Where does that stock stand right now in terms of those that are in dire need of receiving liberation?
Well, almost all African countries now are independent, with the exception of Western Sahara, which also is actually being sat on by a fair African country, Morocco. But the African Union recognizes the Sahrawi Democratic Republic, which is struggling for the independence of Western Sahara. So in terms of political independence, all of us now, except one, are free. However, whereas the colonial yoke has gone, neocolonialism still exists. In fact, if you see the resurgence of military coups in West Africa, the instability in Central Africa, the disasters in the Sahel region, is because this flag independence has not been translated into social emancipation, economic emancipation. Well, that's number one. Two, political leadership has not grown to that position or place where they can contain internal security challenges. And when these security challenges arise, the military has not been built to strength. What do? They turn back to their leaders and say, you have not made us what you're supposed to be.
So what are the chartered ways that are now on table through, of course, the bigger umbrella, which is the Organization of the African Union, down to the member states, to be able to then break away from the neo-colonialism that you're stating?
The starting point, of course, is African unity as a continent. Because when people are together, they are stronger. However, this unity minus economic interconnectedness, you are simply daydreaming. And that's how the African Union came up with the African Free Trade Area, intended to facilitate Africans trade with each other, appreciate each other, exploit our comparative advantage given the climate and differences in climate and soils. So that not only are you making interconnectedness, but you also become independent of the world outside the continent. After all, we have been crying for free trade in the international trade, but we're not getting it. So if we had intra-Africa trade, one would increase interconnectedness, but two would also increase the cooperation and therefore a ground for an African federated state, for starters. Three, according to the AU security architecture, the belief is that from the sub-regions, EAC, SADC, ECOWAS, the Maghreb in North Africa, the Central African Economic Union, if those sub-regions can start federating, can enjoy economic interdependence, then you can be sure the continent will be built on those blocks.
All right, this is where the Pan-Africanists come in. How do we then get to have that merged economic interdependence within the African states? And then in terms of the economic freedom that you mentioned, how do we get to actually attain that in the coming future?
First, the AU has put up in structure of those regional groupings, like you mentioned, coming together, like touching the issues that are not exactly and most importantly political, like cross-border goods and people, free movement, and passports and things like that. There's actually the African passport. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's also one of the projects that is part of the pet projects of the African Union. But again, we believe that for Africa to have a legitimate way forward, it needs to harness the masses, the people at the grassroots. So I think the most important job is to make the people conscious and aware and value the reasoning of wanting to go all the way together. So if the will of the people is backing up our political leaders at the AU level, then the road will be quicker. That goal can be achieved quicker than expected. But if it is forgotten that the masses actually are the people who are supposed to give us the true sovereignty that we deserve as a race or as a people, then we have lost it.
Okay, all right. Well, General, where's the party at?
The celebration is in Kololo, ceremonial grounds. Again, courtesy of the Minister of Defense, it was offered for free. We requested the police to allow us to march, and this is an area which I normally give emphasis, that even us, we write to police for permission to march. And we still had issues. They had refused because of the COVID restrictions. We are negotiating to allow us to move from Constitutional Square, march all the way to Kololo, and then we'll start our ceremonies. Lunch will be served to those who are coming to celebrate the Africa Day. We are no longer starving continent to have the food.
That's true.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then moving forward, are there any other programs that we see that may be put in place to actually carry on this Liberation Day, conversation?
There is. We have an exercise that we run every year across Africa, actually across the East African region. It's called the Great African Cycling Safari. You've heard of it? Have you heard of it? And we've been working with them on their safari over the years. But this time they will come into the stadium to give a demonstration of how the safari runs. This is the longest cycling safari in the world. It covers 6,000 kilometers. It goes through 5 East African states, and it lasts 55 days.
Wow, that's a lot. Anyway, given the time and where it has to go, so that's
there
true.
Will be a demonstration.
Okay, all right.
Then there will be cultural dances,
okay,
drama, music, and then of course speeches, political and socio-economic, from the different speakers that we have.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dr. Mugabi. We want to look at the social media responses about the Africa Liberation Day. We do have Chibajo Yada saying nothing absolutely because we aren't liberated. Okay, all right. Silas and gracecare.org says the purpose of the day was to annually mark the liberation movement's progress to symbolize the determination of all the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. Okay, that's interesting. Blair Atuhire, you saying the move to unification of Africa and Pan-Africanism in its old ages, political scientists and public administrators. Okay, the last one, Kenneth Namuyimba says it means nothing to mean since we are still in captivity under the dictatorial rulers in certain African countries, which is close to what Afande Kulayigye here did say. Neo-colonialism still extended, and that is the way forward. That's something they have to clear out through, of course, the general body, which is the Organization of the African Union, trickling down to the member state. And but we wish you nothing but the